and says you can't use the last one for the last 10.
Yeah,
I'm running out of passwords.
yeah, because the next time I have to go to double digits. I just keep going up one.
That was here.
All right, being 7 o'clock, let's call the Coos Bay City Council meeting to order. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda this evening is public comments, so this would be the time to come forth and make a public comment, your name and where you reside, what city, and give us your comment, preferably something that's not on the agenda. I have two people that signed up for public comments, but that doesn't mean that only these two are limited. But the first one we'll start with those two. The first one is Susan Anderson. Good evening, Susan.
Susan Anderson, I live in Coos Bay, right up the street.
Yeah.
I'm here tonight to talk about the library bond. We had planned to have a group here tonight anticipating this body adopting an amount for a bond campaign. We have had a group of people working for 7 months, ready to hit the ground running tomorrow morning once we had a dollar figure. I understand the frustration. We share it, that the state failed to come through with the funds. It does not, however, remove our need for a new building. My concern this evening is the delay that this body has been discussing of up to 2 years of putting that bond on the ballot, and I would encourage you to reconsider that. I understand that given that tonight is the last meeting prior to the deadline for filing for the November election, that November of '21 is out, but I would urge you to really focus on May of 2022. It will be a regular election, so we won't have to eat the cost of the whole ballot measure, first of all. Secondly, it will slow down the delay of the new building, which we desperately need. I have been working operating levies and bond levies since 1984, a long time, and I've learned a few things along the way. The worst thing you can do when you need to pass an operating levy or a bond measure is to back off. And it happens a lot when people put it on the ballot and might fail the first time, and then everybody panics, and it's understandable. You have a lot of volunteer time, people are frustrated, and they back down. But what it says to the community is, see, they didn't really need it. And that's the message that's going to go out of this when the community finds out that the bond is not being put on the ballot. See, they didn't need it anyway. And we all know we do. It could be tomorrow that the library gets shut down. It could be a year from now. We don't know, but we know it's coming. And the more we delay, the more likely that is to happen. So we need to plan accordingly. We have a group of people ready to work as soon as City Council steps up to the plate. I understand it's going to take more planning at this point because you were counting on, as we were, some help from the state government. That's not there. But I've also worked a lot with the state, and what I hear constantly from representatives and senators when I approach them for funds for a variety of groups that I work with is that everybody's here asking for money all the time, but we don't see them doing anything for themselves. The reality is we're going to have to do this for ourselves. If we want a library that serves this community and continues the excellent work that staff has been giving us for decades, century actually, we're going to have to step up the plate and do it ourselves. And I've committed to do that. There are a lot of people who have committed to do that. I encourage this body to rethink the amount of delay you're considering to putting that measure on the ballot. We need to move, and we need to move now. I get November's out, but really think about May. If it fails, we go back in November. If it fails, we have another May where there's an election. This is a unique position that we've got 3 elections back to back to back that would allow us to put something on and not have to pay the freight. So please consider that. I also want you to really think about the repairs that need to be done at the library just to keep it open. I did some investigating. We can tarp the Myrtlewood room for $4,500 to $6,000. Nothing says Coos County like a blue tarp on the roof. It would certainly illustrate we have a problem and how serious that problem is. If we go in and try to slapstick a fix, it sends again that message that, see, we don't really need a library. They can fix the one we have. We all know that's not true. It continues to surf the mill slough. It will continue to surf the mill slough until it falls down. And I urge you to reconsider and look to put the ballot measure back on the bond measure back on the ballot in May of 2022. And I commit to doing the same work we've been doing for the last 7 months to try to get it passed. Thanks.
So Susan, before you leave, I think there might be some questions from the council, but one from myself for sure. So we've been kind of like following the lead of the board and the advisory committee. And so this is a new twist, I should say. I'm not opposed to it, but through discussions at our last meeting, and Bob was there. So I mean, is this an independent thinking, or is this, are you representing the board as a whole, or what's the take on this?
I don't serve on the library board. I serve on the library foundation board. I'm not here speaking for the foundation. I'm speaking as an experienced campaigner. I am not on that committee, and I was very upset when I heard the discussion.
Okay.
None of the people on that committee have the experience of running campaigns
Okay.
and understand the backlash. And I did bring it up at a couple meetings. Oh, we didn't even think about that. I know how devastating it is. I had this battle with the Coos Bay School District for years on their bond campaign. Every time it would go down, well, then we wait for 5 years to do it again while things deteriorated and got worse. We don't have that luxury because the library is not in any shape to wait that kind of time.
I understand your reasoning, and I understand your thought process on it. So, council, other questions? Anyone?
Well, I'll just say that the library board has a meeting tomorrow, and I think this should be a topic of discussion for them. And we can bring back a recommendation to the council.
Okay, so what's the time frame, Roger? Is we have to have this decided today for this meeting, or?
Yeah, I don't think you have enough time to get on the November ballot.
I
I
mean-
will tell you that, based off your comments at the decisions at the last meeting, staff went over with a team and went through the library to look and see what could be done, what can we do to make it last till we can go out and get the bond. That's the primary goal right now, is to make it last. And I know we had a contractor up on the roof. As of today, I'm waiting for that report, so.
Yeah, your deadline for the November election is August 14th, so you won't have another meeting before that.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was led to believe you didn't, so that's why I
Okay,
said,
so, yeah, well, no, that's,
May
I
is-
mean, it's
May is
better,
doable.
it's better to have this brought forth now, where we have a chance to research a little bit more and get some other feedback from the library board. But I would suggest that you also be at the library board meeting tomorrow with your opinions, so, because we're going to take a recommendation from them probably. You know, that would make some of us decide one way or the other, I would imagine. Any other questions for Susan? Anyone?
Well, I'm a little confused. I thought we decided at the last meeting to allocate as much as $150,000 to re-roof the building. So I don't know why we need to tarp it.
I think that's just a recommendation at this point in time.
Yeah, she's suggesting that if we go ahead and fix the roof and spend the money, it's saying that we really don't need a new library. Putting a tarp on it would send a better message to the public that we really do need it.
Oh, okay. Then I'm sorry, I was confused about the comment.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see it that way. I see it as trying to buy enough time to get the bond done. But I was not thinking that by roofing the building is telling everybody that's gonna fix it. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a severed hand or something.
right, because we are well aware of the condition of the building, but not everyone is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so Susan's idea is to make sure the Band-Aid shows.
Gotcha.
Anyone else?
I was just going to make a comment. That was one of the things that I brought up. Obviously, time is great for a PR campaign to educate the public, but I also understand, having been in the business, the PR business, that is a big concern about what message that you're sending
Right.
if you can Band-Aid stuff along. And really, that's what the library has had to do
Yeah.
up until this point.
For a decade.
As you said, for a decade. And so I completely understand what you are saying. You know, time is good. but also it's bad in a lot of situations, so
And
that's
the
just.
reality is fixing the roof doesn't solve our problems. It stops the leak
Exactly.
and, it stops the leaks, but it doesn't solve the
keep it
problem.
from sinking into the ground.
No.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Susan, appreciate it. Good to see you. Next one on the public comment roster is B. Ross. Is there a B. Ross here? Come forth, give us your name and address, or not address, just where you reside, please. Come to the podium, and if you speak in the microphone so we can all hear you, it'd be great. Thank you.
Actually, yeah, my name is Barry Ross, 2645 16th Court. I put my name on there as I assumed that was a sign-in sheet. I didn't think it was for speaking.
Well,
To
good,
be
we'll
honest
get
with
you
you.
up here.
But now that I'm up here, I'll pause until it's time to discuss what I came for. So
Okay, all
thank
right.
you very much. And by the way, is there a way to turn these speakers up a little bit?
I think the main thing is that we
It would
need
be-
to,
it would
we
be
all need to
helpful.
speak into it. We can't,
Phil,
unfortunately,
Phil, you may want to bring your microphone down.
yeah,
Are your microphones actually live?
yes.
Oh, is that? Now I hear it when you tap on it. I just
Hello?
don't hear you
Hello?
guys speaking.
All right, we'll try to all speak into it. Sorry. All right, sorry about that.
It's good for the folks that are online as well.
So is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Come on up.
My name is Mary Cahill, and I live in Coos Bay, Oregon. And I just mostly had some questions about the library.
Sure.
I kind of am confused why we need a new library when the Chandler Building, which has been standing there for years, has pumps underneath it. And that was one of my questions. And the other one is why, I understand you want to locate it out somewhere off of Ocean Boulevard. Is it in the neighborhood facility building? And if that's so, I've talked to quite a few people about it, and we kind of feel like that the library should be downtown Coos Bay and not out in some Timbuktu place, because, you know, I think that school kids should be able to get to it, and I know there's a lot of people that are a little more indigent that use the library a lot. And I think having it way out there is going to make it really difficult. So that's my real concern. And I really don't understand unless somebody explains to me why it can't be fixed. So.
Well, Roger, you can go through it, but this has been going on for not just 5 years, Mary. I know this last election where some of us had come back on, it was a problem. And at that time, it had a 5-year life, and so we're on its last legs. And prior to that, it was a continuing problem. We did an addition that was a problem. Going back 20 years, there's been problems. And so this is nothing new, but specifically, I don't know, Roger or Jim, you want to?
I can take that. A structural engineering evaluation back in 2014 revealed that the foundation had failed. Basically, it needs more pilings, and they needed to go much deeper than they went in the 60s and in the 90s when those additions were done. It can be fixed. At the time in 2014, just to fix the foundation, it was $8.6 million. And it would have to close down the library for more than a year. But that wouldn't fix the roof, the HVAC system, the electrical system, and all of that. So the council at that time chose that they would not go that route. They would go the route of trying to build a new library. In addition, they wanted the library outside of the tsunami inundation zone, which our current library is in both the flood zone and the tsunami inundation zone.
Well, but the whole of Coos Bay is, so I mean, you know,
The downtown is.
well, I know, that's what I mean. So, anyway, that's just my personal feeling
Sure.
about it. And I did know that a structural engineer had said it was unsafe. How much do you think it's going to cost to build a new library?
It'll be about $25 million is what the estimate is right now. And the thing is to get out of the zone that we're talking about, the flood zone, inundation zone. If you get on the other side of 4th Street, you'll be out of it. In fact, that's why the fire station is located where it is. And step in at anyone if I'm incorrect in my comments here. But anyway, and we also need 2 acres. And so it's been unable to find 2 acres in that location that would fit that. The other thing we've been trying to do is make sure we keep it in the urban renewal zone, so that would be less of a burden to the library, like buying the property. That's what we would be doing out in Empire. We were going to do it in Ocean Boulevard, but it was decided not to do it. It was not a majority, it was a split vote, to put it where by John Toppett's Park. We found out the city, from Phil Marler, that we have 25 acres out there, and we were going to utilize some of those acreages for that. So there's no cost to the library or the city for the property. And the way the library works is that we have to supply the building and the property and the maintenance of it, but the operational part is done by a special library taxing district for the county that's split up among all the libraries and functions.
Two other things, if I might add. The multi-purpose of a library and a gathering place in the event of a disaster, and we know it's just a matter of time before something happens, that would create a gathering space, a safe place for people to go. And the other point you talked about was being near schools. And we also have schools and lots of families in the Empire District of Coos Bay. And that is also something that the coalition, the Community Coalition of Empire, has been working to improve that area. That almost serves as a gateway to the Empire District. And I don't know how many multifamilies, low-income housing that we have in that area, but it does serve a part of this community that's been part of this community since, what, 1950?
Well, I understand that there's a lot of low-income housing there, but anyway, you know my viewpoint about it,
Sure.
so I'll excuse
Well,
myself.
and, you know, Mary, you were not the only one. I mean, there's some people on the library board that were, wanted it to be downtown, and, I mean, that was the initial research and to find a piece of property. I mean, it was quite much, it was gone for 2 years now? Is that how
Have you
long
ever
it was?
thought about making it two-story instead of one-story, so you could do it on a smaller piece of property?
Yes, it was evaluated, but the cost to operate a two-story library is more expensive than a one-story, and there's only so much revenue from the library district that we can get. But everybody went to that same path. You were on the same path that we were.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Mary.
Definitely a difficult issue that multiple library members have wrestled with, and the steering committee that worked on it for a couple years, trying to locate
Okay.
a location.
So, any other public comments? No? Okay, we'll get on with regular meeting, and first item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Council, how would you like to proceed?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent calendar as submitted. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Next item is consideration of concurrence with the Empire Urban Renewal Plan amendment. It would require an adoption of Resolution 21-20. Nicole?
That's me, thank you. As you know, we've been working for the last several months at the Urban Renewal's request to look at a plan amendment for Empire, which would allow us to bring some additional property and expand our maximum indebtedness out there for some projects that we've identified. That process involves talking with the overlapping taxing districts that this plan amendment would affect. One of those communications was to meet with the districts that comprise 75% of the taxable area within the Empire District. And the city is one of those districts. So we are coming to you tonight with a presentation. Our consultant is online. I think we've talked about this in numerous meetings, but it's nice, we have a nice group here tonight to kind of discuss it again. Before you is the resolution of concurrence for the city of Coos Bay's support of that plan amendment.
Okay, so for the public, we have our consultant on for urban renewal. We want to increase the urban renewal in Empire, and to do that, we have to go through a process, and this is one of the processes. And the city of Coos Bay, even though we're asking for this, we still have to go ahead and agree to it and vote on it to meet 75%. Is that correct, Elaine? And
That's correct.
So we'll be at, the City of Coos Bay, if we do this, is 45%? Anyway, go ahead, Elaine, you can explain it.
I'm sorry, I don't have the percentages in front of me, but what I do know is that when you add the city percentage plus the school district plus the education service district, you reach that 75% mark for increasing the maximum indebtedness. And I think what Nicole was maybe going to cover is that you already have the school district approval. Pending an agreement, you have the ESD approval, and what this is asking for is that city council approval. To be able to proceed with, I believe it's the next agenda item, you have to then approve the amendment to the area. But to approve that amendment, you have to take this step first.
So with with us and School District 9 and ESD, we get over the 75% that's necessary to enact this. I'm a proponent of it, always have been, of urban renewal. I think it's proven itself. You see a lot of projects and streets and repairs and development that's going on because of it. Without it, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of those projects would not happen. So it's a tool that we have that's beneficial to us as a city, and so I'll leave it at that. Council, any other comments? No? Okay, how would you like to proceed on the resolution?
I'll make the motion that we adopt Resolution 21-20 in support of the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Coos Bay's Empire Plan Amendment.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve adoption of Resolution 21-20. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Okay, next item is a public hearing. Before I open the public hearing to consider an adoption of the proposed Empire Urban Renewal Plan Amendment, I'm going to have, is it going to be Nicole? You want to explain this, or we're going to have Elaine do it?
I think Elaine actually has a PowerPoint she might walk through.
Okay, so I'll have her do a PowerPoint so that there is the information there for you, and then we'll take public comments.
Okay, I am trying to share my screen. Which it is not. Here we go. Do you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. In this presentation, we'll talk about the potential plan amendment, the boundary, the projects, the finances, which is the maximum indebtedness increase, the process on maximum indebtedness concurrence, the impact on the taxing districts, and then let you proceed with the public hearing. Some of this, as we said, is repetitive, and because this is a public hearing advertised to everyone in Coos Bay, we just want to go over some of the information again. This is the boundary of the Empire Urban Renewal Area. The blue arrow points to the 2 parcels that are being added to the Urban Renewal District as part of this amendment. So it is John Toppet's Park and the site of the Armory. There are limitations on the amount of acreage that may be added to an urban renewal area. This meets those restrictions on acreage. You can add up to 20% of your original acreage. After this amendment, if adopted, you will have still 22.25 acres that may be added to the area. As part of the amendment, we worked with staff to review the total costs. These are the costs of programs in the future in 2021 project dollars. So the facade program would continue. It's a very successful program for this area. The Empire Sidewalk Project Phases 1 and 2 would continue at $500,000. Property acquisition, the potential library site was acquired, and 2 additional sites are under consideration. Those aren't listed as to be acquired yet, but it provides $1 million for potential acquisition in the future. Other future projects would be capital street improvements, and this would, if the library is sited at John Toppis Park, would adding street improvements in front of the library site. Gateway improvements, addressing brownfields within the urban renewal area. So for a subtotal of those projects of $9.1 million, there's also financing fees and administration, and then a total of 15.6. That total includes projects already in this year's budget, so that's why this table doesn't add up to the full $15.6 million. There are limitations for the amount of acreage and assessed value citywide that may be in urban renewal. Your 2 urban renewal areas together comprise 6.86 of your total assessed value and 13.09% of your acreage. You're allowed up to 25%, so you have plenty of flexibility, even given this amendment, if you want to review urban renewal someplace else in your city. Maximum indebtedness is the total amount of money spent on projects, programs, and administration over the life of an urban renewal plan. There are restrictions in Oregon Revised Statute 457 that require a maximum indebtedness increase like you are doing or reviewing. Get approval of 75% of the districts representing the permanent rate levy amounts. Again, those would be the City of Coos Bay, the Coos Bay School District, South Coast Education Service District are ones that will equal that 75% amount. The proposed maximum indebtedness increase is from $18,890,011 to $29 million. Sometimes people get confused about maximum indebtedness, meaning that they think the city is going into debt or it's an increase in their property tax bills. It should be understood that this action would not increase property taxes for permanent rate property taxes for the citizens of Coos Bay. Urban renewal is funded by a division of taxes from existing taxing districts. Those taxing districts receive a little less money than they would normally, and that money then goes into the urban renewal fund to do projects, programs, and improvements within that area, and will help to stimulate growth in other areas of the city. And that growth is something that all taxing districts will be able to realize the benefits of. Another provision of the statute is that at the point you do a substantial amendment, you lose any revenues from bonds. The existing Empire District does gain some revenue from bonds. It would no longer get that revenue, which would be a benefit, a positive benefit to property taxpayers. And then revenue sharing provisions kick in, estimated to happen in fiscal year end 2034. At that point, a share of the overall tax increment revenues would go to the taxing jurisdictions. And you can see kind of right in the middle of this table that the city's amount would be about $14,500 for the first year and go up just incrementally each year. The taxing district impacts for the, still shows the revenue sharing for all the different taxing jurisdictions. So the total amount of revenue shared until the projected end of the area would be fiscal year end 2040. In the report that was forwarded to the city council, it showed, and to all the taxing jurisdiction, it showed impacts of the amendment, which would extend the division of taxes for the taxing jurisdictions from fiscal year end 2031 to fiscal year end 2040, so a 9-year extension. In the documents that were transmitted, it also shows the full impact of both the existing urban renewal plan plus the amendment. And then there are also tables showing the impact of the present MI only. The next two tables show the actual impact of the proposed amendment because the other impacts have already been presented to the city as they were adopted. So this impact is the only new impact. It would begin in fiscal year in 2031. The reason that impact is so much lower than the next year is that, you can see here, is that the existing areas impact, the existing maximum indebtedness flows into this year also. So the revenues from 2031 are essentially split between the maximum indebtedness that was in effect and the potential new maximum indebtedness. This just shows the total new impact on all of the different taxing jurisdictions. That new impact is around $10,750,000. The Coos Bay School District and the South Coast Education Service District are funded by the state school fund. So the impact on them is different from the impact on regular taxing jurisdictions. The impact on them is called indirect, because it means these funds would not be going to the state school fund. However, there are other funding sources that go into the state school fund that do what's called backfill that fund to allow the legislature to keep the school funding at the per pupil ratios that they establish. This information was reviewed with the Coos Bay School District and the South Coast Education Service District. And they agreed to the maximum indebtedness increase with the provisions in the prior. I think you have another item coming up that would be an agreement with them on potentials for if that state school fund changes. You can see in the bottom row or the next to the bottom row, the amounts of impacts are much lower, and that's because in that fiscal year you would reach your maximum indebtedness and you wouldn't need all of the revenues that would be available that fiscal year. You would only need a portion of them. The process of approval for a substantial amendment is for the Urban Renewal Agency to review the amendment, and they have done that. The Planning Commission has reviewed the amendment and found that it did conform to the comprehensive plan. You have consulted and conferred with the taxing districts through a letter to all districts and presentations to the school district, the education service district, and the county. The Coos County Board of Commissioners was briefed on the amendment, including the maximum indebtedness increase. You did have taxing district consideration of that increase. You provided your citywide notice. And now your hearing tonight is to consider the ordinance for adoption of the maximum indebtedness increase.
Okay.
So now is the time for the public hearing. And then I will be here and available for any questions either now or after the hearing, whichever way that works best for you.
Okay, first of all, let's see if any of the counselors have questions for Elaine. Anyone?
Yeah, Elaine, I asked this at a previous meeting, but for the benefit of the public, the two properties being added to this district are both exempt from property taxes. So can you explain how that affects the taxing districts?
That's correct, and I should have just included that. I'm sorry that I didn't, but both of those properties are exempt from taxation now, so they don't pay any taxes. They are owned either by a nonprofit or publicly owned. The John Toppetts Park is city-owned, so neither of them pay taxes. Putting them in the urban renewal area has no additional effect of adding any additional taxable property to that area, so it does not have an impact on the taxing districts. The impact of the taxing districts only comes from that increase in maximum indebtedness.
Any other questions, council, before I open the public hearing? Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the public hearing to consider the adoption of the proposed Empire Urban Renewal Plan Amendment. So if you have a comment on this item, this would be the time to come forth, make the comment, a question, anything that's related to this. Anyone? Okay, hearing none. Okay, council, how would you like to proceed on this proposed ordinance?
I'll make the motion to enact the proposed ordinance amending the Empire Urban Renewal Plan.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to go ahead and enact this ordinance. Do we have a number on this?
543.
Okay, so that'll be part of the motion. And will you do a roll call, please?
An ordinance making certain determinations and findings relating to and approving the Empire Urban Renewal Plan substantial amendment, Amendment 13, and directing that notice of approval be published. Counselor Farmer?
Aye.
Counselor Kilmer?
Aye.
Counselor Marlar?
Aye.
Counselor Matthews?
Aye.
Counselor Miles?
Aye.
Mayor Benetti?
Aye.
Ordinance number 543 has been duly enacted.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of intergovernmental agreements with Coos Bay School District and South Coast Educational Services District, ESD. Nicole?
Actually, Roger's going to
Roger?
take that
I
bit.
can take that one.
Okay.
So when we made our presentations to the Coos Bay School District, their board, which supports urban renewal, was concerned about what happens if the current funding structure of the state changes in the decades to come while this urban renewal agency is in existence. And they, of course, were concerned, as they have a fiduciary duty to look out for the best interests of their students and to pay for the programs and education they provide. We looked at that, and currently, because the funding from Coos Bay actually is commingled with funding for 190 school districts, if there was an impact, just year one, it amounts to $1,800 is the difference in what they would get over what they get now. The discussion with them was, could we, and would we be willing, and that's you, to consider an intergovernmental agreement whereby if this moved forward, and should there be a change, and there hasn't been a change since 1994 is my understanding, based on former Senator Roeblen, then the city would agree to backfill any loss that they would have. Now, you have options. Of course, if you were faced with that situation, you could backfill with finances from the city. You could choose to under levy and not take the full amount of urban renewal, or you could choose at one point to close urban renewal and then pay down the maximum indebtedness. Some feedback there. I think someone has their
Yeah, I was trying to get her screen
microphone
sharing.
open. It
I think it's up there.
might be Elaine. So what we have is we have put together, and the city attorney put together an agreement, provided it to the Coos Bay School District. They, of course, shared it with ESD, who had the similar concerns. ESD has approved theirs, and we have no additional new comments from Coos Bay School District. So what we're asking tonight, in order to get that concurrence from them, is for the council to agree in future years after 2031, should there be an impact from this expansion or amendment to the urban renewal plan, that the city will agree to either backfill or eliminate that impact.
So Roger, just to clarify, and I think everyone needs to realize, if these funds are needed to make the school districts whole or loss they may receive, comes out of our general fund. Doesn't come out of urban renewal because it cannot. So that's why the agreement has in there that the urban renewal can reduce the amount of the urban renewal indebtedness, or they can eliminate it. That gives the future councils options if that comes about. It's very unlikely, but it's a possibility, and so nothing's for sure, as we were discussing with the school board. And School Board District 9 also agreed and passed, the board agreed to pass this as long as we had this agreement in place. So anyway. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Mayor, that was actually my concern when we first started discussing this, was that I don't want to pass on some future bill to a future council. So I'd like some kind of insurance that that's not going to happen.
Right.
Or at least, what is the worst case
Yeah.
scenario that we've seen over the past few decades? And I'm
Right.
sure you've looked into that.
Yeah, we actually did the math on what would be that impact based on the 192 districts. And then taking that, it's actually quite a complicated formula, because it's not just the 192 districts, but it's the aggregate amount of students within those 190 districts, and what was Coos Bay's proportionate, and if they lost a set amount of money in 2031, how is that distributed among all of those districts, if everything remained equal, and what is that financial impact? So we came up with at least a ballpark figure, and at that time was under $2,000.
Yeah, and as Senator Roblin indicated that when he was up there, the state is supposed to backfill this, and they're supposed to backfill it more than they're doing at this point. And if they were not to do that, even though they're under, I think, a mandate to do it, the point being is that this would not just affect us, and this would affect us in a minor way, but they're cities that have urban renewal all over the state that would be heavily impacted by this, so that are doing urban renewal projects just like we are. So this is not something new, but I think this agreement puts it in place since the school district wanted it. That gives flexibility to the future councils. And I think the possibility of this even happening starts in 2031. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. So there would be 9 years that would, I guess there would be a potential impact to the city.
So just a follow-up question then, in relation to that $1,800, that can be a lot for somebody, a personal individual, but what are we talking about at the city? What percentage does that represent? It's a very small.
I'm not even sure that'd make a fraction of 1% in the city's budget.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
Very small then. Thank you.
Okay, so how would you like to move on this amendment, intergovernmental agreement with Coos Bay School District and South Coast Education Service District?
I'll move to approve the two separate intergovernmental agreements between the City of Coos Bay and the Coos Bay School District and South Coast Education Service District.
Second.
It's been moved and it's seconded to accept the intergovernmental agreements with Coos Bay School District and the South Coast Education Service District. Any other discussion, comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you. Okay, next thing on the agenda is a public hearing on the Coos Bay Comprehensive Plan and Coos Bay Development Code amendments related to HB 2001, housing requirements. And so before we open the public comments again, we're going to have Carolyn Johnson that give us some information on this and kind of the highlights of what we're dealing with. And therefore, if you have any public comments, then we'll go ahead and open them up. Carolyn?
Yes, thank you. Tonight you're looking at some cleanup work to an ordinance that you adopted, 3 ordinances that you adopted in May. There were a few things that were overlooked when we kind of finalized your work at the tail end of this, and there's also some minor corrections that we would like to see made to the ordinances that relate to the development code. You looked at all the information in May 2 times, on May 4th and May 18th, and there were public hearings at that time, and the information has been available for the last week. So if you do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, before I open public comments, any questions for Carolyn on this?
We might just have one narrative change on page 16. It references where the manufactured homes were going to be put in. Those have shifted to stick-built. It doesn't change the substance of the ordinance really for its impacts, but it's just a little narrative piece we might want to tinker with.
Okay. So,
Okay.
is that going to affect us enacting this ordinance tonight, though?
No.
Okay.
You would want to include it in your motion.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing on this. So if you have a comment, this would be time to come forth. So it's on the Coos Bay Comprehensive Plan and the Coos Bay Development Code, and amendments related to House Bill 2001, housing requirements. So are there any public comments on this? Questions? Nothing? So I'll close the public hearing. And council, how would you like to proceed? I need a motion for the ordinance.
Sorry.
And since Drew, you threw a little kink in there,
I
you want
did.
to go ahead and make the motion?
Figured that one would come back to me. A motion that we enact the ordinance amending the Coos Bay Comprehensive Plan and Coos Bay Municipal Code Title 17 with an amendment to page 16, striking the references to the manufactured home project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the ordinance, Coos Bay Comprehensive Plan, and the Coos Bay Development Code. Would you like to do roll call, please, Melissa?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Coos Bay amending the Coos Bay Comprehensive Plan and Coos Bay Municipal Code Title 17. Counselor Farmer?
Aye.
Counselor Kilmer?
Aye.
Counselor Marlar?
Aye.
Counselor Matthews?
Aye.
Counselor Miles?
Aye.
Mayor Benetti?
Aye.
Ordinance number 544 has been duly enacted.
Thank you. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, next item is city manager's report. Roger?
Yes, I wanted to share with you, and many of you have probably seen it, the 4th Street project, which is an urban renewal project, is heading towards its finish line. It will be completed on time. That's the word I got from Public Works this morning. I know that they're all working together to make sure our contractor gets that moving forward. The newest part that is visible signs of progress is the new intersection, or the new signals went live on Anderson, on Commercial. And we'll probably see the Anderson light go live and the old system pulled out in that coming week or two. In addition, another urban renewal project, which was a private-public partnership with the owners of the Tioga. That's been an amazing transformation. That project is nearly 100% complete. I think the only thing they're missing is some lights in the back. But they've already begun the next project, and that is the painting of the Koski building. If you've been down by Tower Ford, they have begun their project, which is also a public partnership on a building improvement project for their facade. So I'm looking forward to seeing that completed project to see how it matches up with the other buildings they've already done. And I hope I'm not stealing Councilor Miles' thunder, but the project with the School of Dance is nearly complete. That is an excellent project. That building hadn't been painted in decades, and decades is probably being generous. It's been at least more than 4 or 5 decades since it's been painted. So that new skirting around it, the new emergency exit out the back. The old one was fairly treacherous, if not dangerous by itself. So that one's nearly complete. We hope to have the building down on Front Street next to the scrapyard demolished as planned. Hope it'd be nice if it's by the end of August, but probably the next 6 weeks. So we're just finishing contract work with the contractor for that phase. And staff is hoping to go out to get bids for the cleanup of the Inglewood School project beginning sometime next month. I'm also happy to report that while you approved the collective bargaining agreement with the Coos Bay Police Officers Association, I'm happy to report that they've ratified that, and that has been completed. And just two last things. Wanted to let you know that the homeless work group will be meeting this week. They'll be reviewing a time, manner, and place ordinance to help us regulate camping within the city of Coos Bay. That ordinance has been reviewed with the city of North Bend as well, with some of our elected officials meeting with their elected officials to discuss that. We're all looking to have something that's somewhat similar. If that, you'll get this back to your next work session with comments from the homeless work group, and then we believe that it'll come back one more time on August 3rd for consideration. And lastly, it's that time of year again when the League of Oregon Cities has their annual conference. This is a great time for people to get together, see what other cities are doing, and see what the emerging issues are and how best practices are put before you for consideration. So if you're interested in signing up for that, you'll probably have an email already, and now you have it in a memo. Jackie's nothing but thorough. That concludes my report.
All right, thanks, Roger. Rob, we'll start with you since you have more information on the, right, almost, right?
What's that?
Oh, yes.
It's Drew's turn to start first, isn't it?
Let's start down here. Okay, Drew, you're first.
Oh, it was mine last time. Okay. Wanted to say with the comprehensive plan, there were also some good spots in there. Page 23, we made an addition of recognizing the tribes as partners in the development of housing throughout our community. So that was a good recognition to put in. And you can also note, I think on page 28, that this is a much more optimistic plan than the one was drafted in 2000. Back in 2000, they anticipated only needing 116 new houses. The new amended one is 604 new houses anticipated. So it's a good sign for the growth we're expecting, and it's a reflection of what Portland State's study indicated we can expect. Also wanted to touch on what we're looking at with the libraries, and I'll jump ahead of Rob a little bit too with the School of Dance. One of the things we can do as a city to support the education in our community, because of the way school district funding works in Oregon, that shared pool with all those districts sharing money, it's allocated relative to the student population. So if there's no way for our community to choose to tax more and still get those dollars. It goes into the division of the state if something along those lines happens where they generate more revenue. But when we work as a city, we make things like libraries, we make increased facilities, we invest in the School of Dance and after-school programs for students. That's a way that the city can contribute to the prosperity of our students outside of the restrictions that the state has on school districts. So that's another good reason we look at the things we're looking at right now, is because it's a way to allow our youth to better themselves. And yeah, it's important that we make those investments. And that's what I got.
Thanks, Drew. Carmen.
Let's see, that was comprehensive for sure. I will just share a little personal experience. Working on city permits and building permits and such is always an interesting trail to follow. And I'm in the middle of that right now, and I just wanted to thank everybody at the city office who is diligently doing their work. Sometimes frustrations can be high. I know they have been on my part, but it's not directed at any of them, mostly with myself. But the city staff has been very helpful, and I just wanted to give them a progress report and say thank you, because I think they're doing a great job.
That's very nice of you, Carmen, especially since you intended to have an opening, a soft opening on this weekend, and ran into some difficulty. So from a counselor, we all run into problems that sometimes are unforeseen, and as hard as it is to understand, Carmen's telling us that our city staff still does a good job, and he appreciates it.
Yeah, I also want to say sorry for calling so many times.
Oh, I'm sure you were.
They're like, oh, it's Carmen again, huh?
That's all right.
Of course it's me.
Well, they get to know you that way, right?
Yeah, well, I think they knew me plenty before then, but, you know.
Phil, any comments?
I just want to say, I have a real heavy heart tonight. We lost 2 people this week that have been very influential and important to this community. And it's never easy, but it's really sad that we've lost a couple of people that meant so much to this area for so long, and that's just, it makes me sad.
Thank you, Phil. Stephanie,
I concur.
go, do you want to tell them who it is?
Former Fire
Fire
Chief Stan Gibson passed away this week, and the chief of the Coquel tribe, Don Ivy, passed away.
All right, Stephanie.
I concur with Counselor Marlar. It's been a tough week. Also suffered a loss in the family, so it's never easy. Also, but on a different note, because I seem to kind of always keep track of what's happening, I do want to mention that after a long year of pandemic, the Coos County Fair opened today, and people are excited. My staff was down there. They're excited to be out and doing again things outside and as a group. And so that is going on through Saturday. Coos Health and Wellness does remind folks that there's still COVID out there, and to take the necessary precautions if you need to. But they are also doing free COVID vaccines out of their office this week, starting tomorrow morning, Wednesday at 8 a.m. Through Friday, and you can make an appointment at cooshealthandwellness.org. If you haven't received your vaccine, they are offering an incentive, which is ride bracelets for the Coos County Fair, which if you purchase on the fairgrounds are $40. So it is, if anybody is sitting out there on the fence and they're trying to get that done, it's a way to receive something and help the community at the same time. That's going on through Friday. And then I think that was everything that I had.
All right. Rob.
Oh, wait,
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Oregon Coast Music Festival opened this past weekend, and that goes on again. They'll have a weekend of events, the 24th and 25th. And you can find out their schedule on OregonCoastMusic.org. Sorry.
Rob.
So, as you guys know, the city of Coos Bay makes a significant investment into the Boys and Girls Club summer program. So I thought I would give you an update on, they're now in week 4 of the program. Each week has a theme week, so activities are built around academic success, character and leadership, and healthy lifestyles. Week 1, it was Art Week. Week 2, it was Outdoors Week. Week 3, it was Renaissance Week. This week, it's Water Week, so I've seen a lot of wet kids outside. And next week, Sports and Fitness. Also, the club's already completed a gymnastics camp, a tennis camp, a bowling camp, a soccer camp, and a volleyball camp. And this week, they have a basketball camp and a dance camp. And that's all I have on the summer program as of now.
That's awesome.
So how many kids do you put through this summer program?
With the after-school summer program, so the youth center gets about 60 kids a day. Gymnastics, tennis, each camp probably has 40 kids in it. And then also we have obviously our dance program and gymnastics program. I'm not exactly sure what their numbers are right now, but you're probably looking at 150 kids a week that are getting impacted.
And this is the summer one only, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the investment Rob is referring to, I don't think it's gone up, it's $10,000 is what we give annually. I think it's a fraction of what they provide. This is something that goes back, I don't know how many years that we've been doing this, and so I think it's a great investment, and it really serves a purpose. So anyway. All right.
It has gone back a long ways, and I will say it started out at $25,000.
Well, I know. It did. You're correct. But I had nothing to do with reduction of that, right?
And then lastly, I concur with Councilor Marlar in wishing the Gibson family and the Lucinda and Ivy family and the Coquille Indian tribe my best wishes. Dina and I have had a long relationship with Lucinda, so I just want her to know we're thinking about her.
Yeah, and I just want to concur with what's been mentioned. So with my condolences to the Stan Gibson family and Stan, who was the chief here. And for those of you that might not know, Lucinda DeNovo's husband is Don Ivy. And he's been an influence in this community for a long period of time, an advocate, just a wonderful guy. And anyway, will be missed. The only other thing I have, just a couple things. I just want to commend the police again that have been helping on the homeless. This morning I'm walking, and we have an individual that is definitely has a mental illness that Drew had referred to, that the state, I'm going to reiterate, is not doing anything about, and is leaving it to the local entities to deal with, which we really don't have the capabilities. But the officer took care of an individual who was down at the Visitors Convention Bureau, the Information Center, I should say, and he was yelling obscenities, and they came and they cleaned up the trash that he had and his bags and took him somewhere, I believe, probably for a short period of time, and it'll probably be released again, and it'll be another issue we have to deal with. But I wanted to commend the officers on that. Our police department really steps up and takes care of it. We don't have enough to deal with what we have, but we're at least trying to make the progress. And the ordinance, hopefully, will come to us soon, and we'll be able to help the officers, give them some tools to be able to rectify this a little bit better. The other thing that I'm going to ask again, and I will ask, and so this goes to Jim, since you haven't had any issues to deal with this evening or any comments, is there any, how are we doing on garbage can research? Because that seems to be an ongoing problem. I don't know if we can secure the ones we have or we can get new ones, at least, and I don't think we can do the whole city, but maybe in portions, something.
Yes, so I've got the information last week and 2 weeks ago on these self-compacting ones, because I hadn't heard of them until you brought that up.
Yeah, the belly busters or something, right?
Yes, and so I've got some estimates from them on what the cost would be, and I was just going to talk to Roger. Well, we started talking this afternoon about it, and we'll continue our discussion.
So for the public, just to let you know that this was brought up, and I'm sure you've seen this, that the cans are opened up and by individuals throughout the community, and a lot of it's probably the homeless, and there's trash strewn all over the place. And so what we're looking for is a container that can be locked or secured in a fashion that cannot happen. The thought process is we know there's an expense associated with it, but also we know that it will save our public works department a lot of manpower and going around and cleaning up on a daily basis. Also, what's happening on a daily basis is that Public Works is changing out the garbage cans every single day with garbage can liners. So there's another expense. So we're trying to find something that's more efficient and also be locked down and not have traffic strewn all over. Anyway, those are my comments. I want to say thank you for attending and your comments. And hopefully we'll see you in the future. Take care. Thanks. Meeting's adjourned.